Hello guys, and welcome to another video. In this one I'll be doing a full service to my E87 BMW. It is very windy today, so apologies if you can't hear me properly, but essentially we've got these are the tools that you require. So we've got the air filter here, we've got a socket wrench, I've got a half drive and a 3/8 drive, got a brake cleaner. This is the oil filter socket. It's 36mm. Then we've got a screwdriver, then we've got the oil. It's recommended that I use the 5W30. Then we've got the oil filter here. This is just to place the oil. I bought it. It's a 2-litre canister. This is because you need to make sure that the measurement is accurate. You don't want to overfill your oil because that will cause big issues. Then we've got the POLLEN filter, the cabin filter. We're going to replace that. And then last but not least, we've got the torque wrenches to torque back the screws. And then finally we got the stands that we're going to put the car on, and obviously the trolley jack. And here is the car. These are the tools that you'll need to replace the air filter. First, we've got to remove the engine cover. These are two H4 or H5 bolts. Just unscrew them and then you can just pull out the engine cover. But it sort of slides out, you know, doesn't. Next, place a towel around the filter to prevent any oil spill. Next, use a 36mm socket to remove the oil filter. I believe these are special to the diesel engines. Next, open the drain plug cover. Place the oil bucket underneath and unscrew the drain plug using a 17mm socket. Make sure the engine is not warm and the car has been on standby for at least 20 minutes before you do this part, otherwise you will burn yourself. Make sure you have an oil mat or maybe some newspapers to avoid any leakage. Next, remove the oil filter and replace. Okay, so now use some force to remove the oil filter. It will be quite tight, but it doesn't matter. We're replacing it, so you can put some force in there. Remove the oil filter and then put in the new one. We also need to remove the seal. You can just use a screwdriver to remove that. And then use the new seal that came with the oil filter. Make sure you lube up the new seal and make sure it sits all the way in the end, as you can see in the video. And finally, make sure you hear a click sound once you push in the new oil filter. Then replace the washer on the drain plug. Now, screw in the new filter. It uses a 25 Nm of torque. After replacing the plug washer, place it back in, and it also uses a 25 Nm setting. Make sure to recycle your old oil. Do not push it down the drain, don't put it down the street. It is very harmful to the environment. Next, we're adding the new oil. I bought a container to help me measure accurately how much I actually am putting in. Don't overfill your oil engine because it will cause big problems. Now the oil change is all done, we're going to be replacing the POLLEN filter. All you're going to need is an 8mm socket or wrench. There are 6 8mm screws, and yeah, you just unplug them and you have access to the POLLEN filter. Once you remove the POLLEN filter, make sure you clean the area underneath, because that essentially is your air vent. That's where the air comes in. So make sure that's very clean. As you'll see, mine is filled with leaves and dirt, so I've made sure to clean that with some cleaning solution. Now we got the POLLEN filter To remove it, you just have to unclip the 3 clips there and then just place a new one in. I bought the carbonated or the ionized POLLEN filter, whatever it's called. It does last a little less, however it is more provides more filtration. To put it back in, you kind of just shove it in. To put it back in, all you do is you place it back in, take your time. These plastic bits do break very easily, so please do it slowly. It should fit nice and flush. Now to place it back on, you just do 6 screws and you're all good to go. Now here's the hard part. This is the air filter. Watch this part first. If you feel like you cannot do it or it's too much effort, then please take it to a mechanic, but this part is quite lengthy and it's a lot of work. So first thing you need to do is you need to remove the plastic bit on the top. It's held in by 2 8mm bolts, and you will then have to unclip the battery lines. Those are very straightforward. You just open the clip and then take off the lines, and once that's done, all you have to do is unclip the brake fluid sensor wire and the wire on the other side as well, as you can see on the video here. Now the plastic cover can be removed, as you can see here. What we're going to do next is we're going to remove the rear engine cover. It uses 2 H5 bolts. I wouldn't remove the actual cover, I'll just take off the bolts because we just need it to be loose so we can move it around. We don't actually need to remove it. Next, use the E16 star bolt to remove the engine brace. You also will need an E18 star bolt because you want to remove the full engine brace, not just half of it like what I've done over there. As you can see, the engine brace does get in the way, so it's best to remove the whole thing. I will show you later on how to do that. Now that the rear engine cover has been loosened, we will be working towards removing the actual air filter cover. It's held in by 4 bolts, 4 H5 bolts. And now I'm working towards removing the actual vent, or whatever you want to call it. It's held in by 1 H5 bolt, and actually it's held in by 2 T25 bolts. I'll show you in a moment. So now we're using the T25 bolts to remove the air vacuum cover, or whatever it's called. Now I'm working towards loosening the H5 bolts for the air filter. They do not actually get removed. They sort of stay in place. You just loosen them up. There's 4. There's 2 as you can see here, and there's 2 in the back which are very hidden. You can barely see them. Again, this is one of the reasons why I'm saying if you cannot do this or it's too much work, send it to a mechanic. Here I'm just showing you one of the bolts that we need to loosen up, or one of the screws. That one in the corner there is so difficult to see. Once that's all done, it sort of just comes out. We just have to move around the rear engine cover, and then we can remove the air filter. As you can see, the engine mount or the engine brace, whatever you want to call it, is blocking my way quite a lot. So definitely remove it if you're going to replace the air filter. Again, I'm trying to show you the full process because it is quite difficult to get out and in. and I want you to see the full process to make sure that you have everything covered. Finally here, I've managed to remove the air filter. There are actually some cables behind the air filter as well, which have stopped me from easily being able to remove it. Now that's been removed. Removing the actual air filter is very, very straightforward. You just pull it up and then pull out. And as you can see, mine is very dirty. So we're going to put in the new one, which is nice and clean. So this part is probably the most difficult part. Placing it back in and making sure the air filter cover fits in nice and flush. I would urge you to inspect how the air filter has been set up or placed before you remove it, to make sure that you have an understanding of how it's fit, because it fits in very, very accurately, I guess, but it has no room for wiggle room. It doesn't allow any wiggle room. You have to fit it exactly how it was, which is a bit difficult. Here I'm just showing you the air filter cover. I want you to look at all the screws. I want you to look at the actual surrounding of how the air filter is built, because it's very, very important to inspect that. So as you can see, for example, this bit over here, this bit goes on the outside, not the inside. Whereas this long bit there, this one gets tucked in. This goes on the inside, it gets tucked in, whereas that bit there goes on the outside. So you sort of have to tuck in the air filter. Again, it is a bit difficult to put back in, I'm not going to lie. That's why maybe for the air filter, if you're doing it first time, do it with a mechanic or something. Or just make sure you have plenty of time. Here I'm just placing everything back together. You know, in all those tutorial videos, all they do is they just say, you know, put everything back together, and they don't actually show you how to do it. Sometimes, yeah, you need to be shown. So the area I've circled over there is the hole to remove the engine brace. So you need an extension and you need an E18 bolt, and all you're going to have to do is, there's a screw in there, you just put it in and then you just loosen it up a little bit.